Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Full Exposure with me, your host, Brian Kelly. Hey, the premise of this podcast is really simple. I invite a guest I'm interested in photographing and talking with to my studio in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The first thing we do is we sit down and we create a portrait together. That's right, the guest has to sit for me in front of my camera, and we create a portrait together. Typically, during that photography session, a really cool, fun, funny conversation begins. And the premise of the podcast is that we get to sit down after the portrait shoot is done and extend that conversation and just see where it goes. And you get to be a fly on the wall and listen in as we meander through a whole bunch of whatever topics are on top of our mind. And I'm just super pleased that you are tuning in and listening. And it would be really great if you enjoy this podcast, if you could go to whatever platform you listen to us on, give us a rating, leave a comment. It will help other people natively find this podcast, because I'm sure most of you might already know me or we're connected on social media, but we'd love to see if this idea has any legs out into the other world that aren't just my family, my friends, and my mom who's listening. So we want to see if this thing will grow. I don't know. The feedback so far has been pretty great and really overwhelming and positive. So I want to thank you if you've sent me a text, an email, an instant message, maybe a direct message. There's so many ways to get in touch with me, but I appreciate the encouragement. So with that, I'll introduce my next guest, who is actually one of my closest friends, one of the most talented comedians in Michigan or in the country. Let's just expand that out. I didn't mean to hold David Dyer, the comedian, to just one geographic area where he's great, not just Michigan. He's great across the entire country. Let's just be real. If you've ever seen Dave perform, he is incredible. A seasoned comic, great writer, timing and delivery is just off the charts. And I'm lucky to say that he's one of my friends who keeps me on my toes. I see his success. It drives me to work harder in my own field. And this is a little bit of an insight. These are two guys, two 50-year-old guys reminiscing a bit about their lives, how they grew up together. I actually started this podcast by settling an old beef with Dave. I've always felt that he really was angry with me for maybe our whole lives about the fact that I didn't invite him to my 8-year-old birthday party. And it's been time. It's time for us to talk about it and get it figured out, because 43 years is a long time to know somebody, and to carry the burden of being shunned by me by not inviting you to my 8-year-old birthday party is a lot to carry through life. And Dave, I'm sorry. And if I could go back in time, I'd invite you. I would invite you, Dave. I love you, man. And I'm sorry. But anyway, we worked through that and everything's fine. And with that, let's light up this next episode of Full Exposure with Brian Kelly and my guest, the great comedian, David Dyer. So, we're speeding. Okay. Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable now? You have coffee?
Yeah, feel great. Feel real good.
Take one. Dave Dyer, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Brian, for having me. Appreciate it.
We're in my studio. We just did a photo shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the audience to know up front, Dave and I have been friends for you're one of my oldest and dearest friends of all time, and still are. Very close. We're very tight.
Yep.
Talk about a lot of things together.
Yeah.
Usually over
Very
food.
honest with each other.
Over food, usually.
Yeah.
We used to occasionally work out together, and then I just completely...
Something happened.
Right. I'm going to call it an injury, but it was more like a injury, like a full incapacitation of my will to work out anymore.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
Okay.
As my heart seizes up during the podcast.
It's never too late, but we're getting there.
So we've been friends, I think, since we were 7 or 8.
It was grade school. Even though we didn't go to the same grade school, I think we knew each other, first of all, because we played like rocket basketball against each other.
Yeah, and I only played like one season.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically one of my first memories of you that I have super clear was at a Little League game at the old West Oakview, I think it was.
Okay.
And yeah, I remember your baseball cap because your hair was very long in those days.
And very blonde.
Very blonde and very
Dutch
long.
boy. Yeah.
Yes. And I must say that you kind of looked like an early Justin Bieber prototype haircut with the ball cap on. Like there was a lot of hair spewing out from underneath the cap.
I used to get a lot of Adam Rich from 8 is Enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Richie Rich, kind of.
Or Oliver from the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Their little cousin who showed up somehow.
This could be my favorite podcast already, just because of all this stuff. But one of my memories was I remember you were angry with me because we also we didn't live very far apart, but by 7 or 8 year old standards, and we didn't go to the same middle school. It was kind of far apart. It was a little bit of a stretch at that age to like bike over to each other's houses. But I remember
journey.
It was a journey through some woods and trails, and then over, and then through a couple cul-de-sacs.
Pack some jerky with you, right?
Yeah. More like probably King Don's or
King
Ho-Ho's.
Don's licorice. Big licorice guy. Still in it.
I know you are. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But you were angry with me because you just called me out that I didn't invite you to. I think it was my 8-year-old birthday party.
Probably.
You were a little passive aggressive on me. Like you came out and said, "Hey, I heard you had a birthday party." And again, we didn't go to the same school necessarily.
Okay.
And my
is this you trying to make up for this? Is this something that's been sticking in your craw for years and you wanted to? And so,
listen, appearing on my podcast is not a gift to anyone. Okay. Really. I mean, it's more of a penance.
Sounds like you're trying to redeem yourself by saying it was a geographic decision more than anything.
I'm just saying that I did consider you a friend at that point. I just, because of the logistics of, 8-year-old birthday parties, it was more of a neighborhoody type of thing. That's all I'm saying.
So I'm guessing there was Jeff Clark.
Jeff Clark was there.
Mark Morris was probably there.
He was there, yeah. People could ride over. I'm trying to think who else. There's probably some randos from 3rd and 4th grade that we don't know anymore. Those
fallen
kids
by the wayside.
Yeah, they were last seen by the train tracks, and then no one knows.
Kicking a stone down the tracks.
Yeah. But anyway, that was my first solid, like that. As my 50-year-old brain looks back at it, that's like one of my clearest memories of you. Do you have an early first memory of me?
Yeah. I can remember. I mean, even though I knew you before this, when I think about us as kids, I can remember playing football against you and with you, and you were a very good football player, and I loved football, so
yeah.
I can remember when we played rocket football together and against each other, watching you play. And
yeah, it was
you were
fun.
just really good.
Well, and you were this small package that would rip people's whole entire, decapitate people.
Mm-hmm. I love to hit people.
I still remember in high school, though, this is one of my favorite things that hurt really bad, and I couldn't. There were 2 instances that the names are irreplaceable, but for me and Dave, this would be very funny. We were going on a scrimmage or something right before. It was like a walkthrough with practice, but then I forget which coach. I think it must have been junior year.
Okay, then it would have been.
And you were playing guard, and I was playing linebacker at the time. And for some reason, we just looked at each other, and it was like go time, on that play. And I remember just jamming you at the line, but it hurt. So there was something about the way I caught the shoulder pad, and I was still. I probably told you this back in high school, but I don't think there was a lot bigger guards than you, but there was none that caused more pain than you did, like when you went up against the linebacker as you as the guard.
I loved, and I played rugby later on, way out of high school, but I loved That's something in that sport you either have or you don't. There's a lot of stuff you can learn about football, but you either enjoy getting hit or you don't enjoy getting hit. And I used to love laying people out. And I used to get in trouble. The coaches would get ticked because even in practice, I would lay people out.
Which brings me to my next, and maybe remember this. There was a point where I think it was our JV year, and Scott Olnichek was our quarterback. Mm-hmm. And he rolled out on some kind of keeper, and we were on the outside practice field. Like it's basically a cow pasture that we're playing in. And I laid out Scott Olnichek, our quarterback, like 2 days before the game. So hard that he made like that noise,
like guttural, almost death sounds.
Yeah, there were some organs being moved around, and before he could get up, he had to like reshuffle them. And then many years later, he told me. So he sort of like he did not want to admit how badly he was gassed and hurt from the hit that I licked on him. Mm-hmm. And he made his way back to the huddle and sort of trotted back. And he didn't look hurt, but he said later, like 10 years later, he admitted that it was like the worst thing that ever happened. He just couldn't, but it was like, it gave me so much satisfaction in that moment.
Yeah.
And I missed that sort of collision.
Do you remember there was a guy in our class named Dave Hibbets?
Yeah.
Who was a huge guy.
Yeah.
And he came out for football one time. I can't remember. It might have been sophomore year he came out and played.
Yeah, he was huge.
He was a big guy.
Yeah.
And didn't have a lot of skills because he had never played before. But still, his physicality was just enormous, and he was a big, strong guy. And I had to go against him in a drill, and I just, I'm 5'6", 5'7" at the most, and I just laid him out. And I'll never forget kind of watching him the rest of the practice. I felt bad because the rest of the practice, he was kind of over there just sort of had this glassy look in his eyes, like maybe this wasn't a good decision to play.
He's got his helmet off, and he's on one knee on the sideline the whole time.
I just always, same thing in rugby. Like I said, I never minded getting hit, and I absolutely loved laying a good hit on somebody. There was something about when you made that contact, and you can almost feel them kind of go limp in your grip. You're like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what my dad taught me early on, because my dad was a smaller running back and played some defense, but he was very powerful. Kind of reminds me of you in a way in that size. But he would just tell me, if you hit as hard as you possibly can, you're not going to get hurt. Mm-hmm.
Because you're tensed up.
Yeah,
everything is,
and your energy your momentum will carry you through that. So anyway, maybe that applies to life somehow.
I'll tell you how that applies to college football. I don't want to go off on a big tangent here, but you watch like the success. Even though they didn't win the national championship, you watch Alabama's running backs as opposed to everybody else's. Everybody's trying to, juke everybody, move to the side. They run straight at you as hard as they can, north, south, and they just run right over you. It's so much fun to watch that.
By the third quarter, you're like, I can't hit him
hurts. Again. I know. Go ahead. There you go.
Yeah. We're going to let you walk this into the end zone.
Yep.
So I want to talk. It's been so cool to watch you for 35 years, or how long? Well, you're going to be 50.
I am 50.
That's right. So we're both 50. So, yes, for 43 years we've known each other. So 43 was sort of like meander. And we haven't always been in constant. There was in our early 20s after college and that we sort of there was pre-phones, pre-internet. Right. So, but it was cool to, for the most part we've
stayed in fairly good touch. I mean, obviously over the last several years, much better touch.
Yeah.
And see each other quite a bit more. But, I think... you have your lives, you get married, and you know, so on and so forth. But
no, you're dipping out, and there's the arc and up and downs of you have a new friend for a year, and then they whatever, and then as adults, and actually with a lot of stuff that we've had as a family, I don't hang out with anybody really, but I seem to hang out with you pretty consistently, which is great.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because there's still some things I don't know about you necessarily. Mm-hmm. And your family's always been very, very a funny family. Your dad was funny. Your brothers were funny and brutal, and in a good way.
Yeah.
I think, in a brotherly to you. They weren't brutal to me. They were all kind to me. But but where did the notion? I know funny was in your household. Yeah. But at what point did the notion of stand-up comic? And let me just preface one other thing for the audience: is arguably, or maybe not arguably, the most successful comedian working today out of West Michigan. You've been doing it full time, long time.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. Yep.
So where did that germinate?
Well,
especially but comedy, and I know. Take us through your arc through college and those type of things.
Well, I tell you, to be honest with you, you mentioned my dad. It truly starts with my dad. Not only because he was so funny. I mean, and you knew my dad. He was incredibly smart, very sharp, and the way my dad was funny, which helped me in becoming a comedian and learning how to tell a joke and stuff, is that there's always the obvious joke. When you're in a situation having a conversation with somebody, there's always the obvious joke. But my dad knew how to come at things from a different angle and would say the thing that you weren't expecting someone to say, which is what a joke is. You take them down the street and you take a left turn.
It always catches you a bit off guard.
Oh, he was just the funniest guy. But also, in addition to that, it was the conduit that he was that introduced us to watching things like Monty Python, listening to Bob Newhart, all these kind of Jonathan Winters albums, all sorts of stuff like this. He was kind of the access that we had to all this stuff. And I can remember, Cosby has obviously had his day, but still, I can't deny he was a huge comedic influence. We had a bunch of his albums, and we used to listen to that stuff like crazy growing up.
I don't think anyone would argue that, Cosby's character as a performer, there's hardly anybody that could do what he did on TV or on stage. Obviously, the whole other side to him, is negates and overshadows the other, which it should. But anyway, in terms of influencing the generations of comics, for sure.
And I can remember being a kid and listening to Bill Cosby and thinking, I can't believe a guy is doing this for a living. This is his job. He gets to get up there and tell these funny stories. So very early on, it was kind of in the thought process. I never did any theater or anything in high school. Just as much as I enjoyed musicals.
You played music?
I played music.
Yeah.
I played in the band up through 8th grade, and then I played drums. I took some private lessons in high school, and the rest of it was pretty much self-taught. I used to sit in the basement for hours playing the drums. In fact, that was always – my parents never grounded me. My punishment would be being grounded from the drums for a week, which would kill me. And
I remember I used to go. I don't know if it was probably before the time of thinking about stress, but I remember many times after school, you just go drum for
hours.
Yep. And put on headphones.
I had an old
Phil Collins, Genesis, old Peter, some Peter Gabriel.
I used to listen to a lot of Zeppelin. Try to play a lot of Bonham stuff.
You can't play Bonham, dude.
No.
Come on.
Not very well. But I had an old stereo behind me with headphones on, and every now and then the headphones were so crappy, I'd get a short and I'd get like a little shock in the side of my head.
Yeah. But I remember coming over sometimes and you were playing in the basement, and it was so loud even then. It's like your mom must have been patient as well to allow you to drum even when I guess you were grounded from the drums. But the point was there was no peace in the house. I know you're in a basement, but good Lord, that was loud.
It was very loud. So through high school, I was never in high school, all they pretty much do are musicals. And I enjoy going to musicals, but I was never really into wanting to be into one. And then when I went to college, I went to Michigan State, studied business for the first year, and just hated it. It was just, I thought, there's no way I can do something like this all my life. And had always wanted to try acting and things like that. And I just said, I'm going to talk to some people at the theater department, and just immediately fell in love with it, changed my degree to theater. So I was in a band all through college, and then studied theater at Michigan State and was in a lot of plays. And so I had a lot of experience being on stage in front of people and was very comfortable in that sort of a setting. And then when I got out of college, I still hadn't done stand-up. But about a year after that, I'm like, it just was itching at me. It was always kind of in the back of my head. I'd really like to try it. I'd really like to do it. And then there was that moment where you go, if I don't try it, it's never going to happen. And at that time, there was not all the open mics that there currently are. So I was living in Grand Rapids, but a club that was open back in Lansing called Connections had an open mic night. You had to call the Monday before to try to get one of 3 spots. But anyway, you called the Monday ahead. They had 3 5-minute spots before the show on Wednesday night. And you'd have
I know how hard 5 minutes is to fill. Oh. Especially when you can't remember what you're going to say. But we'll come back to that story later. Yeah.
But I finally got a spot. and worked super hard on it. And my brother John came down with me, and he videotaped it. And this is back in the days when the video cameras were like huge, like Live at 5, even for home use, and had the VHS tape that you would just automatically put in the VCR. And it went great. I worked very hard on it, and that was probably the worst thing that could have happened because I walked off stage thinking this piece of cake.
Yeah, you got it licked.
Yep.
Done.
You know, let's put a down payment down on the house.
Yeah, start looking for mansions.
And then so I got a spot the next week, and because of the success of the first week, did very little work on the second set, and it was kind of like I described to people, it was like a cool lake on an autumn morning. It was just no laughs at all. Not a ripple. Just awful. Which is the second best thing that could have happened because I walked off stage thinking, all right, I got to work at this. So,
yeah. And so, do you remember, maybe not their first couple performances, but do you remember after you got seasoned a little bit, some of the first couple bits that really worked, that were total money in the bank for you? Like they worked nearly every time. I've done
it for 26 years now, so I don't really remember the first couple bits that worked great. Well, it was less about the bits and more about developing the confidence on stage. Those are the things I remember more. Are the kind of milestones you reach where you're more comfortable, and because the same joke from a guy who's not comfortable coming from somebody who is a massively different joke.
And maybe, and I'm not a comic, but I think at that point maybe it's about maybe how you handled some crowd work or something expected. Yeah. You didn't get back on your heels about anything.
Right.
And were able to, that's where that confidence can play a huge role.
It is.
But I don't know. But yeah, so I guess it doesn't surprise me that you're, I used to have a bit about this, checkout cashier or something. Yeah. I don't know.
I think what starts to happen is that once you get that confidence, it starts to allow you to become who you are on stage. And I've always said it's a tremendous turn in a comedian's career when you change from being a person on stage saying funny things to becoming a funny person on stage. That's a massive change in your career because at that point, because what happens is when you present yourself on stage and you've got that confidence, it puts the audience at ease.
Yeah.
Because they can sit back and go, all right, this person knows what they're doing. Let's relax and we can enjoy it.
They can smell blood in the water.
Oh, too. Yeah. When it's not going well for somebody who goes up ahead of you, no, you did fine. You did fine.
Anyway.
But, they can sense that stuff. And when you get up, and you have to get to a point where you immediately establish that. You know what I mean? When just the way you enter the stage, people can tell, all right, this guy's knows what he's doing.
Well, and you're the headliner at this point. So it is a little bit of a chicken or egg. I think, if you're middling, certainly if you're the MC or host that night, the audience doesn't quite respect you as much.
Right.
So they do sort of relax on, all right, I'm here, the headliner, even if they do or don't know you specifically, but they know what a headliner is.
Right.
And they know how to okay. And usually headliners, there is that degree of polish and performance, and you can do 45 minutes or an hour or a half hour, however much you need to do for that set. But the point is, they sort of lean into you a little bit, which can be helpful, as opposed to a middler who, they're waiting for they want their next drink before the headliner comes on stage.
That is true, but here's the great thing about the middle spot. Here's the great thing about the feature spot, and I'm talking about a 3-person format where you got an MC, feature, and a headliner. Because the expectations aren't that great for you, you have the opportunity to blow the roof off the place.
Yeah.
Which is when you start doing that and you start getting critiques from the club back to the booking agents where stronger than the headliner, that's when you start to kind of make that move. And for me...
Have you been bumped off recently, headliner?
What, somebody in front of me?
Just kidding.
You know what? There's a couple comics that I have open for me, a guy named Will Green, who should be headlining and is starting to headlining, and I've done it for 20. He's very tough to follow. He's really funny.
He makes you raise your game.
He does. And I love having him open for me because I know the audience is going to get a great show.
Yeah.
Because Will's going to kill him, and then I'm going to have to be on my game.
They'll be a little hot for you, too.
He's a great comic.
Yeah.
But I found the transition from going to feature to headline to not be that intimidating. In fact, a lot of people say, boy, that's a big jump. But for me, and I think a lot of people are like this, I had enough material at that point to headline. So when you start getting to a point where you're going, okay, I got to do 25, 30 minutes. Okay, what am I going to cut out? What am I not going to do? Then you start to know, okay, you're getting to the point where you need to make that step up.
Yeah.
And the thing I loved about making that jump to headlining is the fact that now I could kind of space things out the way I wanted to. There's this bit, I need this to go a little slower to be more effective. I can take that time now.
Yeah.
And then this bit can be hard and fast. And
I think one of the hardest things that I appreciate, I will watch a lot of stand-up comedy because it's one of my favorite forms of entertainment, but someone who can live in quiet space on stage for a minute, and they're not just talking through like a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Who's as soon as there's any just slightest hint of awkward silence, they're filling it with nervous stuff.
Yep.
And as a comic, to like have that and be able to hold, and sometimes you'll get a residual ripple as it, you know what I mean? Like, and that's stuff that only you could conduct. You know?
I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I kid you not. And they said...
Can we get him on the podcast? Or?
No, it's a friend of mine. He's not a comedian or anything.
He's not famous.
He's a civilian. But he asked me, he said, does the silence up there, does that kill you? And I said, no. I said, because what happens is that there are certain jokes that I do purposely space out, and I'll give them a piece here and a piece here and a piece here. And in fact, I was just
laying the foundation.
I was
baby.
just in Fresno Saturday night, and I had one of the best sets in all my years of comedy. One of the best sets. Fantastic crowd, and I said I'm in a room full of 650 people, and I'm giving them a sentence, and it's completely silence. And then I'm giving another sentence, and there's complete silence. I'm building up to the punchline. And I said, no. I said, when you get to a certain level and you're confident and you know the material is good, those silences, what I'm thinking is, I got them.
Yeah,
I know they're listening to every single word I'm saying. And so that nervousness is long gone. You're like, that's exactly what I'm wanting from them right now.
That's great.
So, yeah.
It's got to feel awesome when you do all the brickwork.
Oh, yeah.
And then it just destroys.
Yeah.
You worked, I admire you a lot because you worked a full-time job for many years, corporate job. You were raising a family, and you were doing stand-up.
Yeah.
And you were hustling and grinding, and you were writing.
Yeah.
And your whole mind is going, I don't think your mind ever, like just me being your friend, I don't think it ever shuts off that comedy.
No,
it's always something looking, and I'm sort of the same way with photography in that it's hard for me to just drive down the road and not see images or something interesting. I think we're both inherently observers or people or objects, or sometimes I'm just looking at shapes or a cloud. For me, though, it has to go beyond just like the basic making fun of people. To me, the observances and stuff like that are... No, I don't. You don't mock people. You're not... No, I don't do that kind of stuff. But, and you know what? I'm not opposed to... everybody does a different kind of comedy. I just have never really taken on that kind of stuff. Because I look at it this way. The guy who's working at McDonald's on the third shift doesn't want to be there, but he's doing something. Right. You know what I mean? So I have a hard time making fun of that guy. Yeah. So I think we all do jobs. Even I've been in full-time photography. There's jobs, there's days I don't enjoy. Sorry, every client. You're not always my favorite client, but or maybe a specific job, but I have a lot of admiration about just people doing what it takes to get through life. So do I. Yep. And no one putting in the effort in any level in life, family, or whatever is gonna. I'll have as much respect for them as the next big person I photograph or some CEO or something. Yeah. And a lot of that comes from my dad too. Yeah. My dad was very big. My dad was a very smart guy, very successful dentist. But my dad was always, everybody gets a fair shake. Everybody gets a fair shake. Yeah. So that was always something he instilled in us. And he'd always find the humor around people. I remember, he found certain people very funny too. Oh, yeah. It's not something he did publicly, but I remember, he wasn't afraid to poke fun at people that he thought were funny. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let me just pose a question to you. If you were to, 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 if you were you're now a firefighter. You went through certified firefighter.
Yep.
If all three of your brothers were in a burning home and you had to save just one, you had time to save one before it all collapsed.
Okay.
Which brother would that be?
Mark's out right away.
Mark's
I'm sure he's not. Kidding. No.
out as if he's dead, or
he's had his time. He had an opportunity. He didn't take advantage of it. He's gone. John's pretty heavy right now. He'd be hard to get out. That leaves Andy. Andy's an obstetrician. He brings life into the world.
Yeah. He's probably got a fairly...
Are you really asking me to make this choice of which one I save?
Absolutely. I mean, I would have guessed. I could have...
I would say Andy, just on the base that Andy...
I would have guessed Andy.
Andy is just such a good guy.
Yeah.
He's just such a good person.
Yeah.
Not that my other brothers aren't.
Well,
but
there's degrees. I mean,
sure. But my brother Andy is just such a nice, good person.
Does that have anything to do with maybe the size of his retirement balloon?
I may be in that. I'm not sure. No. He's a very, he does very well.
Yeah.
But he is just a good person. He's just a great guy.
Yeah, and all your brothers are. I'm joking. Mark coached us in football.
Yep, he did.
And John was a star quarterback played on the same team as mine.
As your brother, yep. And then played college ball at Western Michigan, yeah.
And then Andy just went off. I didn't know, of growing up, Andy was the one I knew the least.
Yeah.
Like personally.
Really smart. Always reading. Yeah. Us making fun of him for always reading, right. And now it paying off quite well for him. He's a really.
I just remember coming back
guy.
after mid-20s, and then getting reacquainted and reacclimated to your family quickly, and it was Andy's uber successful, and you're like, I should have maybe been taking more interest in him.
Yeah,
growing
should have
up,
been his friend,
even though I was just a little kid.
He is, and I mean this sincerely. He is the funniest one of the four of us.
Really,
he is. Now I'm the one who likes to do it outwardly. I'm the one who likes to get on stage. Andy would never do that.
Yeah, but
internally, if you're sitting having a conversation with him, he is without question the funniest one of the four of us. Just very dry, but just. Yeah. Will be the person everybody's talking, then all he has to do is make one statement and it floors everybody.
Yeah. He was very nice after the roast. Well, I want to talk about your roast maybe later. I want to get through a couple other things. But after the roast was done and I was on the dais and I gave a little talk and some jabs at you, I think he was the first person that came up to me after, and he shook my hand. He's just very generous and kind, super warm.
He's a great guy.
Thought it was great.
Yep.
But anyway, but it was good to kid. And Mark, I haven't seen John much in the last, quite a while, but since he moved away. But but talk about your brothers just as terms of helping to form your sense of humor as the youngest, and many times, you were
I was the smallest growing up,
and you were the quickest outlet for some, playful abuse.
Oh yeah.
So to stay on the vein of your family, so you're the youngest. You have three older brothers.
Yep.
I'm sure you were the target of some playful. I know you were playful roughhousing abuse.
Yeah.
How did that shape you as the youngest? And I'm the youngest, but I have less siblings. But also just as a comic.
Well, I think physically it kind of toughened you up. I mean, we used to beat the tar out of each other. It wasn't like an abusive home or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we were four boys who... Yeah. It was four boys.
Yeah.
And we used to play football in the backyard all the time. I'll never forget my dad came home from work one time. And we had been playing... We had a great... When this was the neighborhood we lived in before, I lived over by you. And we had this great, nicely square, flat backyard that all the kids always came over and played football at our house. And I think it was my brother John who first said, I'm going to go put my cleats on. And then we all put our cleats on. Hey, that's a great idea. Good grip. And my dad got home from work, and our backyard was a mud bowl. I mean, the lawn was just absolutely torn up. We had been beating the tar out of each other all day, and he was just furious. But we were very physical. We did a lot of sports. So there was that aspect. I mean, there's the typical little brother crap where I got pounded on a lot. But I think also just verbally, it was just no holds barred. I mean, we just were brutal to each other, the way we'd make fun of each other. And you either survive in that or you don't.
Yeah.
And the problem for me where that translated to a negative thing was me being the father of 2 daughters and trying to use the same kind of humor with them. Did not go well. Did not go well. I can remember one time we were up north, and I'm not going to say which daughter I said this to because it was a traumatic experience, but
it was Zoe.
We were going to go downtown. We were staying up north at a place we vacationed at. We were going to go downtown and get some ice cream, and I said, "Come on, Thunder, we're going downtown." And later on that night, I didn't realize I'd caused damage. My wife goes, "You're going to talk to her, aren't you?" I'm like, "About what?" "You called her Thunder in front of everybody." I'm like, "So what?" And so that's the problem, trying to get some of that out of my system. I mean, I was a chubby kid and swam a lot, so my nickname was Orca. My brothers for years called me Orca. And I had some.
And for Dave is a ripped CrossFit athlete now, but you yo-yoed. I'm yo-yoing more than you did growing up now as an adult. Mm-hmm. But you went through phases of being chubby and short, but you were always powerful and strong. But you had weight on you at some
Yes,
time.
I did. Yeah. I was never like that.
You weren't obese.
Not in high school or anything like that. I got obese after I quit smoking, for my late 20s and 30s and stuff like that. But yeah, I always had a little bit of weight on me. But it was. What were we talking about?
This is how you're not a good guest and I'm not a good host. Okay?
This is going to go well.
This is what the audience is craving right now.
Oh, but was it about my brothers and the influence?
Well, it was. I was going to draw a similarity, and I don't know if it was on me or you to finish the thought, but it was like we have a household full of women.
Oh, yeah.
So I have 3 daughters. You have 2. Yours are, you're an empty nester now.
Yep, 23 and 20.
Yep. So, and I'm not quite. I have 1 out. I've got 19, 17, and 13.
Yeah.
But a very feminine household.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes I come home and I'll walk into a room and I'll be like my wife and daughter or some configuration of my wife with one of my other daughters. And I'll walk in and look around and say, "Why are we crying?"
Yeah.
Like, what is, that is.
Yeah. You say that all the time.
Yeah. Something that we're just like, what? There's something palpable. It isn't always tears.
Right.
It's like, what kind of energy am I walking into?
And you want to, but you can't just go, "Oh, crap.
Oh, come on, pull your pants
Yeah,
on. Let's
exactly.
go."
Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Tomorrow you're never going to think about it. I got to a point as a father to where, I don't know if I ever actually said this to my girls, but I think it was kind of understood. It was always sort of like the emotional aspect, I'm not really going to be able to help you with. I've always kind of been, I got knocked down, I'm just going to keep going.
Here's $30.
Yeah.
Go clean yourself up.
Yeah, I'm just going to, I got bruises, I'm going to keep going forward. So I was always sort of the emotional aspect I'm not going to be able to help you with. But like the support, if you need me to help you with something, I'm there in a second, whatever you need me to do. Yeah. Your mother's going to have to help you with the emotional aspect of this because I can't comprehend it.
Yeah, there's times I don't have quite the patience to listen because it seems like something that should have been solved. Like there's an easier solution that doesn't require a lot of hand wringing.
That's where I always got in trouble. I would always have a solution immediately. Well, it sounds pretty easy. Well, you just don't go there.
Horrible idea.
You just can't do that.
Shut up, Dave. Dad. No. Yeah, it's but that makes me admire my wife and her. She has more than anyone in our family that patience at times, and other times maybe not. But just patience to sort of work through, realizing that whatever they're working out takes some time and patience. So if you just want to unload about something that happened and just get it off your chest, there isn't an arc of like complete rationality in what you're saying or how it relates back. You just need to get it out. And sometimes you're like, no, you're taking we're more black and white guy things.
One of my daughters, what you also learn, and every child is different, and that's the beautiful thing about having kids, is that the way our daughters handle things is completely different. And my oldest daughter, who I love dearly, but she deals with some anxiety issues and things like that. And when she comes across a situation, you have to be there for her, but at the same time, you have to step back. You have to let her get it out. Mm-hmm. You have to just Give her 5-10 minutes to swear or say whatever she's going to say and get it out of her system, and then she deflates a little bit, and then you're like, okay, what can I do for you? But you have to give her that space.
That dodge and weave sort of thing.
Because I'll tell you, she will go hard too. Those 5 or 10 minutes will be hard, and then it'll be past her.
Yeah. Talk to you about you've always, another thing I admire about you is you're always sort of writing and dabbling in scripts, shorts, comedy shorts. Yep. We've shot a few of them. I watched a lot of them that I have no part of. I just watched you put them together.
Yeah.
But where did the love of, writing skits and bits, and they're not like, these aren't comedy shorts with characters and costumes and all that stuff, but it's just pretty much a character you created. Yeah. And it interacts. And we'll get to pillars, but just take me back to the genesis of I want to write for video or film, or the idea of 2 to 5 minute things.
I love writing dialogue. I love thinking up jokes between two people in a conversation, and I love writing that dialogue. And I love editing it and making sure that it works well together, that it works smooth. I look back on the movies that I've always enjoyed, and I love all different kinds of movies. Everything from little independent movies to the big blockbusters. I love everything. But my favorite movies have always been movies where the dialogue is just fantastic between people. Even back the original Odd Couple with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. You listen to the lines and just the way they play on each other is just beautiful. To movies like Dyer, where it's just and that's all. Yeah, they're story-driven and everything like that, but just the dialogue, and I love creating great dialogue. So that's always been my favorite thing to kind of write between a couple people.
Well, and I think what you do really well as a scriptwriter is you really write in some of the beats and pauses and inflections. You have a voice when you write. That's very distinct. And I don't know how long ago it was, 6 to 8 years ago maybe did we shoot the first couple things. So
it wasn't even called Pillars at that point, but it was a similar kind of thing.
Yeah, it was pre that. So, you asked if I could help. You knew I was just getting into video, and I was fairly inexperienced. I had shot quite a few stuff, but enough that you came to me and said, maybe you can help me do this. And I was interested in directing some shorts versus corporate videos or something. And so we agreed to shoot a couple of your things, and you pulled in Kevin Yan, who is, rest his soul, is gone now, but he was an actor that you brought in right away to your earliest scripts. I remember there was a script called The Hitman that we shot, and then one of the first iterations, I think could be called Pillar Zero, or the first Pillars. We shot that episode.
Crabgrass.
It just still gets my act. Just gets me. Yeah. But so we shot that, and then I take it from there, because you saw a little bit about how video worked, and you just picked up from it from there and said, I think I can do this, strip down a little bit more. But I admired you as part of missed not being part of it, but I was also busy, so I was I'm not sure, but it was so cool to see you pick it up. So take it from that. We shot 2 episodes, or two scripts we shot. Both starred Kevin Yan as different characters. You were each different characters. But it wasn't a big production.
No. Yeah. And Kevin, I met Kevin first when, actually in a video thing a long time ago, but we just briefly met each other. But when I started doing some stuff on Kevin Matthews' show on LAV, and Kevin was the producer, that's where we really started to spend a lot of time together. And, you come across a handful of people in life that you just immediately click with. And he and I just, the second we met, got each other. Yeah. The humor just was rolling off each other. You knew Kevin. He was one of the funniest people you'd ever want to meet. You know, sitting at a table with him having coffee or a meal was just an event, because he would just, the whole time you'd be dying laughing.
Yeah, he was the classic storyteller. He loved to tell stories. Yeah. And they were rooted in truth, but they were always so funny. Yeah. And I met him through you, I think, on those 2 things. And then...
And we should probably let people know, whether you know it or not, a lot of people know Kevin Yan because he did the voiceover for the Chrysler commercial. He was the voice of Chrysler for about 5 years, and he did the famous M&M commercial during the Super Bowl. That was his voiceover, which was perfect.
Imported from Detroit. And I've said this before, but the entire brand of Detroit started to turn with the success of that commercial, and his voice anchored that.
Oh, it was perfect.
It allowed Detroit, his narration of that, along with Eminem and just the entire campaign that came out of that, allowed Detroit to own its grit, own its shit, and start to turn it as a positive, and move forward. And a lot of that hinged on his voice.
Oh, it was great because it was articulate, but it was gritty. It was perfect.
He just encompassed it somehow. I don't know how he embodied it, although he has that register.
Yeah, but he and I just got to know each other so well and had just this great chemistry that's sort of where that was the germination of wanting to do these things with Pillars and writing these little 3 to 4 minute scripts, because knowing him so well and being able to easily laugh with him, I do have a hard time writing other people's voice, but I could write Kevin's because I knew exactly how he would react to what I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a Pillars script, and Pillars is a web series that I did. We did 15 episodes with
if you go to YouTube, just search Dave Dyer and Pillars, Pillars.
Yeah.
Awesome. There's probably, a dozen of them?
There's 14 or 15 of them.
Yeah.
15. But there's one of my favorites was called Gorilla, and just his pauses and his reactions are exactly what a conversation between he and I would be.
Yeah.
It starts off, I say, I heard a friend of ours has an Ask You Madison account, and he just sort of sits there, and I'm like, well, don't you want to know who? And he goes, well, I figure you're going to tell me anyway. I thought I'd conserve my energy. I mean, that's a perfect Kevin Jan line.
Yeah, and you wrote it perfectly for him.
Yeah.
I remember when we were shooting, I hadn't shot much scripted comedy at all when we shot the first one called The Hitman. Mm-hmm. And you basically are a guy who wants his wife killed.
Yeah.
And you hire Kevin Jan's character to you think he's a hitman, but he's not really. He's something else, which I won't spoil for people. But there was a line that I ruined like 4 takes in a row because Kevin cracked me up every time, and his line was because you tell him to leave.
I tell him to leave.
He goes, I'm not going anywhere. I just ordered a sandwich. And just the way he delivered that every time, I laughed audibly, and it killed like 3 to 4 consecutive takes.
Yeah.
And I completely not being professional at all because I couldn't, as the director, I could not contain my laughter. Yeah. And it was always on the same line, and I just got the giggle fits. And every time we tried to reset that scene for the next 3 takes, it's like, I'm not going anywhere. I just ordered a sandwich.
Yep. It was beautiful.
And it just killed me.
Yep.
But anyway,
as far as
it grew from there. But I directed the first couple.
You did,
but then you thought I can do a single camera. I know a bar owner, probably just 2 guys sitting at a bar, and then the Pillars are just the rest.
And
a
lot of the reason that came about was because, and I'm not blaming you, but it was because you were so busy, and I wanted to get these things done. So there was part of me that was like, okay, I got to learn how to do this, even if it's stripped down. I got to learn how to do this myself.
Yeah.
And so I bought a Canon T3i camera. I bought a Zoom H1 microphone that was able to place between a couple napkin holders between Kevin and I, which actually sounded great.
Yeah, it sounded like a bar conversation.
And I was able to do these things and use iMovie, and because they were just 3-4 minutes and it was just a single shot, I could, kick these things out.
And the content, I mean, those are popular, and they've, I'm sure, brought you other opportunities. And I didn't bring it up by any means I thought it was great that you just took the ball and run. I'm also a DIY type of guy that not everything needs to cost money to be successful. And especially if you're going to do it, no one else is going to do it for you. I think that's about your drive as a comedian. There's something in me just to be successful in a creative field, you just have to figure, if it's in you and it's calling you to do it, you just have to go do it.
And I also think I'm the kind of person who thinks I would love for it to look as great as it can. I would love, for the sound to be top notch. But if I can't afford to do that, or I don't have the means or the ability to do that, I'm also of the mindset that if the content is good, people will find it.
Right.
Even if it's somewhere on AM radio. If it's good, people will find it.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody on someone else's podcast. I was a guest, and I brought up these. things, and it was just on the power of the writing and the acting. It didn't need to be multi-camera. It didn't need to have the best audio. It didn't have to have the freshest, graphics and editing. It didn't matter. Mm-hmm. It just was just that magic that happened that you happened to get down, and then Kevin, we should just get the audience up to speed. You for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, you'd write 2 or 3 Pillars episodes a year, and you'd shoot them with Kevin Yan. And I think you also mentor a lot of comics, and that really came to fruition with the roast of David Dyer, which was at the Bob, at our big comedy club in town, or our marquee comedy club in town. And a bunch of comics, all younger than us, and I'm not saying us as a comedian, but in our age group, decided to honor you with a roast at the Bob and put together a dais and just to honor you. And it really spoke to their respect of you as kind of the top comedian who's taken time out of your career to mentor and help and hope that these guys do well. Yeah. And you know what? I was thrilled. I was flattered they do that. It was actually Adam Deggy's idea. And it was Adam. He's a dick. No, he's a great guy. He's kind of my comedy son. I love Adam. Yeah. But he, when he had found out, he knew I had a birthday coming, and then when he found out it was going to be my 50th, he said, "Oh, we got to do a roast." So they put a whole dais together, which you were on, and Kevin Yan was on. It was one of the last things Kevin did, and I was thrilled, and it was nice to hear those guys. Obviously you're going to get roasted and they're going to get made fun of, but a lot of those guys I've taken with me on the road and love to help them. Give them advice if they need it, and Adam's a funny guy, and I don't usually like to step in and help somebody with their material, because I'm a firm believer in you got to learn yourself. The audience helps shape your act, but there'll be times I'll work with Adam and say, that one joke. You're adding an extra tag. You don't need to add because you're getting a huge laugh, and then the tag gets you're kind of bringing it down. Yeah, chop that off, And I love working with these guys and saying that not to change their joke, but if you make it a little tighter, it's going to be so solid. The roast of you brought about was how much these guys appreciate you. Yeah, well, which is nice. Which is like that's a very nice place to be. When you're not doing this, so one day they'll do this for me. Yeah. But I thought that the respect in the room, it was sold out. The crowd was hot, and the roast was long, but we didn't lose anybody. You know. Yeah. And it was just a lot of fun. Tell me what it felt like just to be up there and just people taking some major swings. You know what? I was fine with it because I knew what it was going to be. And actually, they didn't take a lot of major swings at me. They did more at each other. They kind of ate each other apart, which is part of being in a roast. But it was brutal. I'll tell you, it was a wonderful thing. It was a great birthday, and just for all the reasons you said, I was so appreciative that these young guys who I've known for so long and seen them from the very first time they got on stage, who wanted to put this together to for a birthday party or however you wanted to call it, but. I was thrilled. I was absolutely thrilled. It was honored to be up there. And it was fun. It was great. It was good to see a lot of friends in the audience. And and then just to tie that up, I was on the dais and had read, I'd prepared a written, like I'd never worked. Honestly, never. There are 2 occasions I've worked hard in the last 20 years. It was both because I was invited to be on the dais and roast you. Yeah. So I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And worked harder on that than I think almost anything in the last 20 years. And it went pretty well. We had great. We had a great set. It was good, and I was the friend. No one expected as like that opener middle. No one expected. They knew I was just a childhood, lifelong friend type of thing. So no one was expecting anything to be funny. But I had run some bits by some people and got some help, and then just had this. But from that, a few weeks later. You invited me to open, or just what do you do? You did a guest set. You did a guest set while I was at to get 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Just go up for 2 or 3 minutes. You did 4. Which I got yelled at for at the end. I'm By who? What's the guy's name? He just left, the club manager. Oh, Seth. Yeah, Seth was like, you went over 3 minutes. Yeah. I was like, it was all blur to me.
I'll tell you what, I'll take a minute out of my act. How about that? You can have a minute in mine.
Yeah. But anyway, that I must say again was something that I prepped so hard for because I couldn't, at least during the roast, I could use notes. I used my phone. I could read. I could, pick it up. I wasn't performing a polished act. I was sort of referring to some fully written dialogue or what I was going to say. When I went to the stand-up, as you know,
you forgot a couple things?
I forgot the lines.
But you know what? Here's why I'm guessing that happened. Because, I'm not saying this to bolster you, but I'm serious. I'll bet you were getting a better reaction than you thought.
Exactly what happened. And I couldn't get back into my thing.
Am I right? Seriously, because that will happen, especially when you're first starting out. You're like, holy shit, they laughed at that. And then you kind of lose your space for a second.
How did that connect again?
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
I didn't know the bridges enough.
Because when you're first starting out, when you're putting everything together, you're chaining it together without any laughs or any reaction, because that's the way you're thinking about it.
And the crowd was very nice because I was brought up as doing my first ever stand-up, which it was. And I said it was my first and probably my only time doing it. But it gave me appreciation for, one, how hard I worked on a 3-minute set for no reason, no pay. It was just because I thought, this will be fun. Yeah. I'll try it. Horrified, by the way. Yeah. I was never more nervous for both those occasions. I've shot many people I should have been trembling. I've had some big opportunities with a lot at stake. Yeah. Never have felt more nervous than getting on stage as a comic. I will say, and I know this is going to come off as arrogant, and I don't care, because I think when people get a taste of it, like you just did, you may be in agreement. It is the most difficult form of entertainment to successfully and consistently pull off. I agree, because you're in a room full of strangers. First of all, people don't like being up in front of people talking to begin with. Yeah. You're in a room full of strangers. It's your thoughts. It's not a play or something somebody else has written, so you kind of have the context to go on. And until you get it in front of an audience, no matter how funny you think it is, you have no idea how the public is going to react to it. No, you don't. And every night can be different. So I know even with your, as much as you tour, how many shows do you do a year roughly? I usually work at least 3 weekends a month. Yeah. So, either Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah. So you're doing 100, well over 100 shows. Yeah. So, and I just stood up because my butt's falling asleep, and maybe that's my problem. Yeah, I'm getting old. Plus, the stool's under a tremendous pressure right now. Imagine what my cheeks are feeling. So, but yeah, no, I totally agree. It's an art form that's always changing. You can always just change how you deliver the tone, the beats, the thing. You can always be tinkering with it. And I think part of the challenge would be to know when to stop tinkering. Right. I've been doing it for 26 years, and I'm still constantly changing things, finding little different ways to do something. Well, and I think that's why I think Seinfeld is an over-referenced comic, but he's still at it because he loves it. I love Jerry's, we're friends. I love Jerry's approach to, if you see an interview with him about stand-up, it is exactly the approach that it should be. Yeah. It's you work hard at it, you work in a serious manner at it, but at the same time, you don't take it too seriously. Yeah, I love his approach to it. Yeah, and it's just I can see the draw of the stage and being a comic, a good comic. Just the siren that you follow out to sea and you drowned. Yeah. Forever for your life. But you're still swimming. You're still going to pursue it. And I mean that there's sometimes you're doing a beautiful butterfly, and other times you're just treading water. Yeah. One minute you're Mark Phelps, and the next minute you're, I don't know the name. Dewey Phelps. Dewey. Whoever that is. Dewey. Dewey drowned off the pier. Yeah. Grand Haven. Yeah. I don't know. What do you have coming up that you're excited about? Well, I mean, I don't want to timestamp it too much. I've got a lot of Laugh Fest stuff is coming up. One of the Laugh Fest, my favorite show that I do all year is part of Laugh Fest, which is coming up, which is the Rockin' Homegrown Jam, which is a mix of comedy and music. There's 5 of us, local comedians, who are on the bill. A local band called the Legal Immigrants. They open up the show doing a few of their songs, and then each of us does about a 10-minute set, and then we do a cover song with the band after our set. Am I going to guest on that, or? You're welcome to go to it. You're welcome to be there. I have an all-access pass. I can go to it. It is going to be, we're doing it at 20 Monroe Live this year. We've already sold about half the tickets. Wow, it's a big venue this year. Bigger venue, yep. And I think they're going to seat it for 800. We've already sold just over 400 tickets. Yeah. So it's going to be just a ton of fun. But then also, and I don't know if you wanted to get into this or not, we don't have much time, but no, I've got time. I've been doing
as you mentioned earlier, the firefighting thing.
Yes, yeah.
Which has become a huge part of my life.
And all of a sudden you're like, I think I'd like to train to become a firefighter. So where did that come from?
The short story is this. I've always kind of felt a need, for some reason, nobody ever instilled this in me, but I've always had a kind of need to want to serve in some manner or another. And when I got out of college, I considered going into the military for a little bit. And this is I'm not saying everybody should do this, but this was just personally for me. I felt the need to want to do that. I didn't do it, and it's been something that's always kind of stuck in the back of my head as a regret. I always kind of wish I had gone in for a 4-year stint or whatever. I did not do that. I've gotten to a point in my life where the kids are not completely grown and gone, but they're in college. Yeah. One of them's out of college. So there's some time there. I had left the corporate world. I was doing a stand-up full-time. Have gotten myself into, literally at 50 years old, 49, 50 years old, the best shape I've ever been in. And there was a sign.
I got to say, I admire you because I got on the train and lost a bunch of weight, got really super fit and lean for about a year. It took me 2 years to get really fit, and then I just left. But you've not looked back, and you've never looked better, and you seem very happy.
I feel great.
There's no amount of time I won't spend talking about how I fell off the wagon.
You can always.
I don't know why.
You know why? The reason I made this move to really start about 4 or 5 years ago to start getting in good shape is I said to myself, "There's a ton of stuff I want to do in this life, and I do not want physical issues to be a barrier to want to do this stuff. I don't want to be presented with an opportunity and say, you know what, physically I just can't do that. I wanted to eliminate that. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to get in good shape. And I got in good shape, and there was a sign in front of the small fire station in our township that's right by my house. It said, hiring paid on-call firefighters. And I said to my wife, I said, this is something I'd be interested in doing. I said, I want it to be challenging. I want it to be...
had to be paid.
Well, that doesn't hurt. But I also wanted to be a way that I could still serve the community or whatever, and something that would be challenging and risky and fun. And she was a little apprehensive at first, and then she said, here at 49 years old, her husband's saying he wants to run into burning buildings. And then she was like, no, go for it. So I put in an application, got interviewed, and got the job. And they put me through an academy. It was 6 months long, a couple nights a week, and a lot of Saturdays. And it has been one of the most gratifying things I've ever done. I knew I was going to like it.
Yeah.
I had no idea I would love it as much as I do.
Yeah, I think there's
absolutely
a lot of venues, or a lot of avenues in why I think that you would like it. One is the camaraderie of the firefighters. Mm-hmm. I could see you definitely, because you're a guy's guy. I love to kick it around. You got some time. That they're a tight band of brothers.
Yeah, they are very,
very tight.
Yep.
They have their own culture, which I think you plug in great too. But also just the satisfaction you would get out of helping others at a time when it's not their best moment in life.
It is.
And you can make a difference at that moment. I can see that being very appealing to you as a person because that's in your
And you know what?
Your heart.
You're exactly right. And I hope that doesn't come off as egotistic or narcissistic or whatever, but there is that. I love to help people. I really, truly love to help people. And when you pull up in that big red truck, you can sense people's ease where they're just so happy. They know you're there to help them. And it's gratifying.
Said, thank God Dave's here.
Yeah. But they truly, there's comfort with that big red truck. People, when you get there, they're just like, oh, good, somebody's here to help us.
Yeah,
and
in fact,
it's great to be part of that. It's great to be part of it.
We had scheduled this podcast. We had to reschedule because we had had an ice storm, and there was tons of power outages and little pop-up fires that happened in the midst of our brutal winter. Mm-hmm. And you'd been up all night, and I just said, Dave, let's do it another time. It's not worth it.
I worked in a 48-hour span. I worked 34 hours. Yeah, we were out constantly. There were wires down everywhere, little fires happening, and it was crazy. Yep, but it's been just an absolutely wonderful experience. And you're right about that camaraderie that you have, and it truly comes from the fact that even though, we haven't been in terribly dangerous, we've had house fires and stuff like that, but there is that sense that, I'm here to protect that guy and he's going to protect me. So there is that camaraderie that immediately develops that you're going to potentially be in some really dangerous situations.
Yeah.
And you have to be there for each other. So
it's that idea. I know every day isn't that.
Right. There's a lot of washing trucks. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that has to be done.
People think my business is just, shooting celebrities or portrait. It's all the shooting, the fun stuff. What are you doing today? Where are you going? There's 95% of the work I do is email and estimation and organizing your gear and complaining about things and occasionally having pancakes with you and
going to Indian buffets. Buffets.
I destroyed an Indian buffet today right before you came over. Surprised I could stay awake because the rice is really hitting right now.
It's soaking up all your...
Yeah. I'm ready for a nap.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming. I can't wait to have you back at some point. I don't know what's going to happen with this podcast, but...
I appreciate you having me. Well, what guest number am I?
Well, you're the third taping. I don't know in time how they're going to be staged when I don't even have a name for this.
So as you review them, there's a chance I could go up the ladder or down.
Well, my goal is to get, as I like to say, 7 or 8 episodes in the quiver.
I knew that was coming. I knew. God damn it!
Yeah, that was the quiver. I don't know what it is. I've used that metaphor a few times. How
about hopper? Can't you say that?
Stop. No,
let's get 5 or 6 in the hopper.
Hopper's not right. Quiver implies hunting, and that you're an arrow now. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't found the name yet. It'll be named when people are listening.
It's one of those things, though. Any sort of name like that, like with pillars or anything like that, it just kind of comes out of the blue. Something will just hit you one day, and you go, "All right, that's it."
Yeah.
Boom.
I was hoping it'd come out of, and maybe it will. Maybe it'll come out of some quip out of this podcast or something else, where it just not that we're trying to name it, but some little hook appears.
How about clicks and quips? There you go.
All right, Dave, you gotta go. All right, buddy. Love you, buddy. Take care.
Thank you.
And there it was, my conversation with my childhood buddy and one of my best friends of all time, David Dyer. A couple quick things. Dave did actually end up helping me name my podcast. We were texting, still kicking it around, and somehow the exposure word came up. And just via text, Dave and I figured it out. And so I'll again be indebted to Dave for some reason. I'm going to have to owe him a lot of pancakes or breakfast or something for helping push the final name of the web or of the podcast over the finish line. Make sure you guys go out and see Laugh Fest. I'm involved with that as a photographer, and it's going on. It's a 10-day comedy festival. You can get tickets at laughfestgr.org. I don't get paid to say this. It's just it's an organization I believe in. Benefits Gilda's Club, which supports cancer and cancer survivors. Doesn't support cancer. That's a dumb thing to say. Let's just say they help people on their cancer journey, whether they are a person who has cancer or it's family members or friends that need support along and assisting other people's cancer journeys. So Gilda's Club does not support cancer as a cause or as a platform. It's not good, but they help the people that need help when they need it, when cancer impacts their lives. So go to laughfestgr.org. You can check out tickets, see some amazing comics and comedians. And, if you really want to see the portraits that I create of each of these guests before we sit down and have a conversation for this podcast, just go to my website at briankellyphoto.net. And there is a gallery on there called Full Exposure Portraits. And you can check them out there and see what we created minutes before we sat down. It's a lot of fun. I love shooting portraits. I'd love to shoot portraits for you or your company. And give me a shout, give me a rope, give me a line. We'll talk about whatever shoot needs you might have, be it photography or video. All right, that should be enough plugging things for now. But check out daviddyercomedy.com as well. Is he a .comer? Hold the phone. Let me check. I'm a .netter. Dave, he's a .comer. Oh, he has that over me, too. He's funnier than me and everything else. Go to daviddyercomedy.com. Go see Dave. He's literally, I can't even say, he's the finest comic out of Grand Rapids, probably of all time. I can't name another one, so it might as well be you, Dave. All right? Guys, have a great week. We'll be back in a few days with another episode of Full Exposure with Brian Kelly.